Hello, hello. So today we are going to be jumping into a bit of a conversation about science, specifically epigenetics and neuroscience. And we're also going to be looking at the inner environment of our home and the inner landscape of our mind and how all of these three are connected. Hi there. Thank you so much for being here. So we're going to dive into, well, I just want to say hi. I feel like all of y'all are coming in through my front door. So welcome. Thank you for being here. And if you have any questions, feel free to throw them up here. This is just going to be a casual but potent conversation about epigenetics, the interior space of our home, and the inner landscape of our mind, and why all of this matters. And so one of the things I want to start with is why we love science. Like, the thing about science that is fabulous is that when it validates what we already know, that is very cool. When it substantiates what we believe is true, like, that's when we love science, right? So epigenetics and neuroplasticity or neuroscience are two fields that really are bridging this gap between science and spirit. And so science and spirit are becoming closer and closer and closer, which is a good thing, right? Because it's doing that, validating what we already know to be true. And so I especially love neuroscience for that, because to me, neuroscience is like the divine feminine science that is bringing mysticism back into the modern conversation and validating what the mystics have been telling us for ages. So I have some notes here because I want to make sure I stay on track. And so epigenetics, the main thing you need to know about epigenetics is it's about how our environment informs our outcomes. And one of the things that you're going to hear from me again and again is when you think of your environment, I want you to realize that you have two environments. You have the internal landscape of your body and mind, and you have your outer environment, which is your home, where you live, nature, your relationships, how you feed and nourish your body, which is a great segue for how we think of our home and how we think of our inner home and our outer home. And every single thing we want to ask ourselves, is this nourishing my inner landscape? Okay, so everything we do in our outer life, we want it to support the inner terrain. We want it to nourish and cultivate more of that inner landscape. Okay, I can tell I'm sort of getting off topic here. So when you think of epigenetics and this idea of how our environment informs our outcomes, I want you to realize it's the main focus that we're going to focus on is the inner landscape, the inner environment of our mind and body, and the landscape of our home, the inner environment of our home, so the interior of our home. And so neuroscience helps give us a language to why we feel the way we feel. So that's the thing that I love about neuroscience is it really is connecting science with spirit, but it gives us a language and validation for why we feel the way we feel. Like, I remember probably like 8 or 9 years ago is when I started swimming in the cold sea, and I didn't know anything about Wim Hof or why it was important for this or that reason. I just knew that when my anxiety was high, when my stress level was high, when I felt like there was nothing I could do to make my life feel better, going into the cold water felt better. Now, thanks to neuroscience, I can have a language and some reasons to support why that felt good. But does that matter? For me, no, it didn't matter. I just knew it felt good, and now I know there's a scientific reason why that's good for me. Okay, so environment. So what I want you to think of: distraction and awareness. Okay, so we spend so much of our time being distracted with the things we have to do, with the options available to us. And distraction is what keeps us away from awareness and this spaciousness. And so here again, we're going to look at the interior space of our mind and the space of our home. And what is going on in our home that is distracting us from what we want? What's going on within our mind that's distracting us from what we want? Because ultimately, we want the space of our home to support the space of our mind. We want our physical home to be a reflection and nourish what's going on within our inner environment. And so this is where neurodesign comes in, because our nervous system is the bridge between our outer life and our inner world. And that makes our nervous system probably the most significant determinant in our experience of our life. And so for me and neurodesign, our nervous system is at the central to all of this. And even more pointedly, our desire is central to all of this, because there's a chemistry that changes when we're following our desire. When we're tapped into our inner passion, when we're tapped into delight and enthusiasm, it's a game changer for our physicality. It's a game changer for our nervous system. And so because epigenetics has told us that our environment informs our outcomes, don't we want to cultivate environments that support the outcomes we want? And we do that through looking at this language that's occurring every single moment between our environment and our mind. I call it neurospatial linguistics. So it's that conversation that's constantly happening between the space of our outer environment and the space of our inner self. Okay, so neurospatial linguistics, it's like the language of home. It's this language that's being communicated between our environment and between our mind. And if you follow Joe Dispenza and lots of other people in that realm, you know that thoughts become things. And so we want to curate environments which create the thought patterns that we need most to support our nervous system, to support how we feel. And so I think if I were going to give you one tool, it would be look at your feelings from moment to moment, because our feelings are telling us about what we're observing and how we're observing it. And if each one of us made our feelings sort of the most important thing in our moment-to-moment experience, however we cultivate that, whether it's going in the cold water, whether it's meditating, whether it's creating home environments that help us regulate our nervous system, which is ultimately what we want, like having our feelings be the core of our focus and our awareness and what we sort of orient our choices around, that is going to lead to the most immediate impact, the most beneficial outcomes, and just moment-to-moment peace of mind. Gosh, there's so many places I want to take this conversation. So I'm just going to pause for a moment and see if anyone has any questions about this. If you're just joining, we're talking about epigenetics and neuroscience and how our environment, our inner environment of our mind and body, and our external environment of our home impact our nervous system, and how our nervous system is the bridge between what's going on in our outer life and what's going on in our inner world. Because if we have a lot of stress and anxiety, our nervous system is going to be jacked up. If we're in a soothing, calm environment, we're going to be quieting our nervous system. We're going to be regulating our nervous system. And why all of this matters is because our desire matters, because this is how we create. And if whatever we can do to support our desires and back up our desires so that our nervous system is buying into the fact that our desires are within reach, our desires are possible, that we are in a place moving toward what we want, that's when we tap into the power of neuroscience and the reticular activating system and I'm just thinking like where I want to take this conversation. So basically, alignment, manifestation is an alignment game, like period. That's all manifestation is. And we are manifesting every single moment of every single day. And it's just a matter of what's being aligned. Are our desires, our choices aligning with our desires? Is our environment aligning with our desires? Or are we desiring one thing? Yes, I will save this live for sure. So alignment, manifesting is an alignment game. Okay. And so why am I even here like sharing all of this? Because your desire and you going after your like desired life, ideal life is the one thing that I know I can help with. And I know that if every single one of us is following our deeper desires, we will make this world a better place. Because if everyone is full of delight and enthusiasm and passion and exhilaration for just who they are and what they're creating and connecting with every day, this world is going to be a better place, like period. And my sense is that it's a feminine effort. It's a female effort. It's going to start here because we are the givers and we are the nurturers, and it falls on our shoulders to hold the circle and to hold the nurturing space, because it's just who we are. And we have discounted our desires before other people's, right? Like we have sidelined what we want, and we've been raised to think that that's what we should do, that that's the right thing. And that's actually not where our power is. That's not how we make the world a better place. We make the world a better place by stepping in to who we are, by owning what we want and going after it. And I've definitely taken this conversation in a totally different direction. But it's all related, right? Like our environment, our inner environment and our outer environment are what create our outcomes. And so we want to just weave together this understanding that our desire and our environment and our mind body, like that is the trifecta of creation. Like that is the trifecta of creating whatever it is that we want. And so back to this idea of manifesting being an alignment game, when we get really devoted, like we would be to a child that we're raising, when we get devoted to our desires and making sure that everything we give our awareness to is supporting that deeper desire, those bigger values, and that we create environments that support that, whether it's our home, our bedroom, our bathroom, our kitchen, our living room, our entry, our relationships, what we put in our bodies, but also, and this is so important, especially with social media, we want to be very protective of what we allow within our mental real estate, because it's all seeds. And so is it seeds full of weeds, or is it seeds of more of what we want? And so make that so important. And this is one reason, and again, I'm all over the map. So if y'all want me to rein it in, ask me questions, because otherwise I'm just going to take you where I'm going in my mind. But this is why bedtime and morning routines are so important, and specifically how you occupy those moments upon going to bed and waking. Because that is when your subconscious is so fertile and so malleable, and that's what's seeding the awareness for the rest of our day. And so those moments upon waking are seeding everything that follows. They're infusing the moments that follow. And so if the first thing you do in the morning, so it's sort of like this. It's sort of like saying, okay, I'm going to check my Instagram to see how I feel. I'm going to check my emails so that I can be informed as to how I'm going to feel. And we don't want to do that. We want to be internally sourced. And so that's why it's so important at waking and at bedtime that we get to be the source of how we feel. We're not going to allow some external random thing get planted in the space of our mind because it's infusing the moments and the hours that follow. And it's the exact same thing when we walk into our home. Those moments upon walking into our home are infusing the moments which follow. And so here's a little bonus. When you walk into your home, you want to experience something that feels good. You don't want to walk into a shit show with shoes and junk mail and clutter all over the place. You need to walk into a space that feels like your sanctuary. You need to walk into a space that feels good and like an embrace from a loved one. Okay? Excuse me. So that is just sort of like my rant, which all of this kind of has been. So let's see if I can pull all this back to epigenetics and design and consciousness. Epigenetics tells us that our environment informs our outcomes, and we have two environments. We have our outer life and we have our inner world. And so if environments inform outcomes, we want to make darn sure that the environment within our mind, body, and the environment of our home, because our home is the only space that we have creative liberty over how it's communicating with us. And remember, it's communicating with us through neurospatial linguistics. It's the mind, environment, language that's happening. And neurodesign is going to take you room by room through your home and show you how each room connects and correlates with specific areas of your outer life and your mind, your perceptions, your core beliefs, your core wounds, and how we can cultivate the inner space of our home in unison with the inner space of our mind so that we align, right? Remember how I said manifestation is just an alignment game. And when we work in our physical space at the same time we're working with our inner space and we're aligning all of that with our desires, things happen fast. Like my students and people who go through my certification and go through my reset program, their life changes like immediately, long term. It's still happening, like meaningful, beneficial change. And it might not always be comfortable, because if we have patterns, if we're doing things that aren't in alignment with what we want, if we don't take care of it, life is going to take care of it for us. Okay. So I should say also, if you want to learn more about this, type reset in the comments below, and I will send you the Power of Home+Mind masterclass. Also, I'm thinking about doing a 5 or 6 week deep dive into home, and I'm going to guide it. So if you're interested in that, I want to sort of like gauge interest, type blueprint, and you'll be guided to my blueprint program, but this is one that I want to lead live week by week because I feel like it's really important. Okay, so question, can you give an example? Okay, will you let me know what you'd like an example of? Okay, of spaces that are in alignment. Okay, so the question is, can you give an example of spaces that are in alignment? And so I'm going to repeat the question, and if I don't have it right, just correct me. So what's an example of spaces that are in alignment with what we want? Okay. So if your home, and we're going to start general first. If you love your home and you walk through your home and it feels like a reflection of who you are, your values, your intentions, what you love about yourself and your life, then your home is in alignment with your desires, and your home is helping to perpetuate what you need to experience within your mind. Okay, so let's say you are, let's say that you are an artist and you live in a space which doesn't allow you to put any holes on the walls, and there are hardly any windows, and there's a lot of city noise, and maybe you like, and this might not be a good example, but you paint landscapes and you're in a space that is really confining and it doesn't give you the spaciousness. I don't know if that's a good example. Here's an example. Okay, let's say that you are lonely and you suffer from depression, and you live in a space that's really dark. There aren't that many windows, and the walls are all painted blue, and the furniture is really cramped, and that's we're just going to stop there. That environment is perpetuating how you don't want to feel. Okay, so if you take the same person who, let's say, suffers from depression, and you put them in a well-lit space with views of like water or a park and children playing, that is going to affect their nervous system much differently than if they're in this enclosed, dark environment with colors that perpetuate feeling blue or feeling alone and isolated. And so what's interesting about our home is that there's different layers to neurodesign. And the first one is like the broad, like the primal experience of the space. And then there's universal themes, and then there's societal themes, but there's also personal themes that are very unique to who we are and our own story. And so as a designer or a guide or a coach, because my program isn't just for people who want to be designers, it's for people who want to help enhance other people's well-being, and our environment is a key part of that, which if you're interested in the certification program, type school and I'll send you a link to that. And so what's really important is that we understand our clients and what they're going through. And so it's not a one size fits all. Like we can walk into a space and say it is for someone with depression, and we can say like, okay, this probably needs to change, and this needs to change, and this needs to change, because this is going to better support their nervous system, and this is going to better support their emotional and mental health. And we need to have conversations with them. Like there needs to be this intimacy and vulnerability to say, okay, this is what I'm really struggling with, and this is how I feel in these situations, and blah, 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 blah. And so we take all of that information in helping create these environments that are supportive to what people want, what their story is, what's working and what's not working. And so it's really it's science-based, it's soul-centered, and it's results-oriented, typically. And so what works best is if someone says, okay, this is what I'm dealing with, and this is the obstacle I'm trying to move beyond. And we have the tools to help them get there because of this neurospatial linguistics, this constant conversation that's happening between our environment and our mind. And the beauty of this is all we have to know is what we want or what we don't want, and then we can adapt our space to help us. And when our space is supporting us at that level, it's supporting our mind at this level. And one of the other cool things that I want to share is that alignment, you know how I said alignment, like manifestation is just an alignment game? The really cool thing is when you bring your awareness to your home and you just address one area in your home, and that area is correlated to a specific area of your life, other areas start moving into alignment naturally. Okay, so if you decided you were going to start eating really healthy, you would notice other areas of your life moving into alignment. Maybe your fitness starts moving into alignment. Maybe the type of relationships that you were involved in are changing. And this is a really good takeaway. When we bring just one area of our life into alignment with what we want, other areas naturally move into greater alignment. Okay, so this is Chantal. I want to see what Chantal is saying. Hi, Chantal. I can tell about my experience with my bathroom. It gave me so much info about my relationship with my body. It was such an eye-opener that I changed my relationship with my body. Okay, Chantal, that is amazing. Like, I love that you're sharing that. So Chantal is one of my certification graduates, and I'm so happy she is sharing this with us. And so, yeah, so your bathroom, like, your bathroom speaks volumes about your relationship with yourself, your relationship with your body, how you communicate with yourself, especially when you're most vulnerable. And so there are just layers and layers and layers. And so, Chantal, can I ask you, has the process between you and your environment, has it stopped? Like, what you experienced, is it still like evolving? And that might sound like a loaded question. I'm not sure if Chantal is still here on the call. And I changed the bathroom into a more loving room. And yes, she said all bolds. Yes, and Chantal's amazing. Like her mind. It will be fun. Chantal, we'll have to have a conversation to see where all this information has taken you, because that's one of the things that I also love is that, and I'm assuming this is true for you too, Chantal, but I feel like with all of the students who have even just gone through the reset program, it's changed them. Like they're more inspired and they're more empowered about what they're doing. They have more clarity about what they want, right? Because when we move our home into alignment with what we want and our values, like I said, other things move into greater alignment. And so our level of awareness expands. Like it's just an essential thing that we get our environment at home to support what we want, because then it's like this beautiful unraveling that happens. And what doesn't work starts to slip away. So this is a long one. I normally try to keep these chats at 15 or 20 minutes, but we're clocking in at 26 minutes right now. I'll open it up to see if anyone has any questions. So Chantal, yes, and I also use this knowledge in my work as a social worker. Well, thanks for bringing that up too, because it truly is not just for designers. Like if you are in an industry where you help people, this is essential. Like it's truly an essential understanding that everyone has, that they are under the influence of their environment, and that doesn't have to be a bad thing. It can be one of the best things that's ever happened to us. And I'll end it with this human ecology sort of notion that if you look at animals in the wild, how they thrive and how they evolve is interdependent on their environment. And we've just moving away from our natural habitat over the last, centuries. And our habitat is crucial and critical for how we're able to evolve and flourish. So, okay, I'm just going to review. If you want more information about the reset program, hit reset. If you're interested in the certification program, type school. And if you're interested in doing a live 6-week deep dive into each room in your home with me, type blueprint. And that will give me a good gauge as to who wants to dive in and really get some deep work done within the next 6 weeks. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I really, really appreciate it. And I have lots of things that are popping up. So I know I'll be jumping in tomorrow with another conversation. I can't tell you exactly what it'll be about, but I'm sure it'll be a wild card at the end of it anyway. I seem to just follow the questions, my own inspiration. So again, thank you so much for being here, and let's just make some fabulous change happen. All right. Have a great day.